Elvis Presley's granddaughter, Riley Keough, is opening up about her plans for Graceland and a promise to her mother.
For over 40 years, the upstairs of Graceland has been locked. No photos, no tours, no exceptions. But now, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, Riley Keough, is finally breaking the silence. What she reveals is shocking. Hidden rooms, sealed letters, secret recordings, and emotional truths the world has never heard. Could there really be a tunnel beneath the house? Did Elvis leave behind music no one's ever heard? And why is one room still exactly as he left it the day he died? Let's discover. Graceland, more than just a mansion. No cameras, no tourists, no exceptions. For over 4 decades, the entire second floor of Graceland has been completely off limits, untouched, sealed, and protected like a time capsule. Even the most loyal Elvis fans have never laid eyes on it. But now, for the first time, we're hearing from someone who's been behind those locked doors. Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, is revealing personal and emotional details about what really lies upstairs at Graceland. What was Elvis hiding up there? Why has this area remained closed for so long? And what did Riley find that changes everything? To understand why these questions matter so much, we have to start at the beginning. Not with the fame, not with the music, but with a house. Graceland wasn't always a global icon. It began as a relatively modest colonial revival home, constructed in 1939 by a Memphis printing company owner named Keough. The house sat on a quiet plot of land in what was then the countryside, peaceful, quiet, and surrounded by fields. It had just 10 rooms and was designed to look elegant, but not extravagant, with clean white columns, arched windows, and a dignified front porch. In 1957, a 22-year-old Elvis Presley had just hit the height of early superstardom. He was restless, constantly followed, and needed somewhere to retreat from the chaos of fame. That year, he bought Graceland for $102,500, adjusted from the often-quoted $12,500 down payment. It wasn't the size or grandeur that caught his attention. It was the privacy. But that wouldn't last. Elvis immediately began transforming the house into something far more than a retreat. Over the next 2 decades, Graceland would become a physical extension of his identity. Loud, colorful, unpredictable, and deeply personal. One of the most famous additions came in the late 1960s, a room that would eventually become almost as legendary as Elvis himself, the Jungle Room, covered in green shag carpeting, even on the ceiling, and filled with carved wooden furniture and exotic decor. This was no ordinary living space. It looked more like a rainforest-themed lounge than part of a southern estate. The room doubled as a recording studio where Elvis laid down some of his final tracks, including Moody Blue. It was strange, moody, and intimate, just like him. Then there's the meditation garden, located just behind the house. Designed in 1964, this peaceful, stone-lined area would later become the site of Elvis's grave, along with those of his parents, grandmother, and eventually his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. Fans from all over the world visit this spot in silence, often leaving flowers, notes, and personal tokens. It's one of the few places where the excitement of Elvis fandom turns into something quiet and reflective. Since opening to the public in 1982, Graceland has welcomed over 20 million visitors. It's not just a stop for tourists, it's a destination for pilgrims. Fans from every continent walk through those doors, hoping to feel closer to a man who transformed music and pop culture forever. Graceland is the second most visited home in the United States, behind only the White House. But even though the estate includes tour after tour of music rooms, awards, jumpsuits, and vintage cars, there's still one part no one has ever been allowed to see: the upstairs. It's not just closed to the public, it's locked, preserved, untouched since the day Elvis died in 1977. This is the mystery that continues to haunt fans and historians alike. What's upstairs? Why is it so protected? And more importantly, what stories are sealed in those rooms? For years, only a tiny group of people, family, staff, and close friends, have been allowed past that staircase. It's not because there's something scandalous or disturbing up there. It's because, to the Presley family, that space is sacred. The bedroom where Elvis slept, the bathroom where he died, the closet where his jumpsuits still hang. Time has stopped on the second floor. Riley Keough grew up surrounded by stories of Graceland. As the daughter of Lisa Marie Presley and the granddaughter of Elvis, her connection to the house is not just historical, it's deeply personal. And for the first time, she's offering glimpses into what those rooms meant to her, and more importantly to him. The upstairs is where Elvis hid from the world, where he read, wrote, grieved, created, and unraveled. In a house known for its spectacle, this floor is silent, unseen. Yet, in many ways, it's the most important part of the story. The allure of Graceland has never just been about what's on display. It's about what's still hidden. Riley's insights into the upstairs give us something new. Not just access, but understanding. What she found inside those locked rooms wasn't just memorabilia. It was memory. Private, raw, and real. And it's time the world heard what she has to say. Riley Keough unlocks the upstairs, secrets and revelations. For over 4 decades, it was completely off-limits. No visitor tours. No video footage. No photographs. The second floor of Graceland, where Elvis Presley lived, and where he died, was sealed shut, protected from even the most dedicated fans. But in a move no one expected, Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter and now the official owner of the estate, has begun to speak. And what she's revealed is nothing short of shocking. Behind the closed doors of that upstairs hallway are secrets no one outside the family has ever heard. Letters, hidden compartments, entire rooms frozen in time. Why did Elvis keep this area so private? And why has Riley decided to share its secrets now? For years, fans speculated that the second floor was locked off to cover up the truth, that Elvis never died, and that the bedroom and bathroom were staged. Some even claimed the Presley family was guarding a lookalike's death scene, and that Elvis escaped to South America. But Riley shuts all of that down. She confirms that the upstairs rooms are preserved exactly as they were on the day of Elvis's death. Not because there's anything to hide, but because there's too much to feel. As she puts it, it's like he never left. Everything's still there. His clothes, his records, the books by his bed. You can smell the cologne. You can feel him in the walls. The second floor has been locked since August 16, 1977, the day Elvis died. It wasn't a decision made by museum curators or tour managers. It was a family order. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, personally ensured that the upper level would remain sealed, not as a publicity stunt, but as a private sanctuary. The rooms haven't been cleaned out, restyled, or modernized. Even the clock above Elvis's bed is stuck at the same time it read when paramedics arrived. Riley, who spent much of her childhood visiting Graceland, recalls sneaking upstairs while the public walked through the lower halls. She and her cousins were told not to touch anything, but they watched quietly, soaking in a world frozen in time. One of the rooms that stuck with her most was Elvis's personal study, a small, darkly decorated space with walls lined in deep wood, filled with books on numerology, Christian theology, and Eastern mysticism. Among them were notebooks filled with Elvis's own reflections on fame, spirituality, and loneliness. Some entries, Riley says, read like journaled prayers. Others are more erratic, unfinished song lyrics, stream of consciousness paragraphs, scribbled quotes. One page, she recalls, just had the word free, written over and over. There are also physical artifacts that Riley believes offer a window into her grandfather's state of mind. Elvis's bed, still dressed in its original silk sheets, is flanked by 2 nightstands, one topped with a Bible and handwritten annotations, the other with pain medication bottles, some still full. Tucked beneath the bed, Riley found a shoebox labeled "Do Not Open." Inside, unsent letters. One of them was addressed to Lisa Marie. Another simply read, "To whoever finds this after I'm gone." These items, Riley admits, are too personal to release to the public, but she acknowledges they exist and that they've changed how she sees her grandfather. In the adjacent bathroom, where Elvis passed away, almost everything remains intact. Riley refuses to speak in detail about the room out of respect, but confirms it's never been altered. Not even the towels have been replaced. The room is sealed with the same reverence as a mausoleum. For the Presley family, this wasn't just a place of tragedy. It was a deeply private space, where Elvis often locked himself away from the pressures of the outside world. Riley says he spent hours in there reading, meditating, and sometimes just sitting in silence. The bathroom, like the bedroom, was a refuge. Another space Riley spoke about, never mentioned in official Graceland literature, is what she calls the quiet room. A small, tucked-away area at the end of the upstairs hallway that Elvis had designed as a meditation space, with low lighting, cushions on the floor, and a soft hum from an old sound machine. This room was where Elvis would go to pray, reflect, or escape. There are no photos of it, no fan accounts, and until Riley mentioned it, no one even knew it existed. She believes it's one of the most honest parts of who he was, a man constantly searching for peace in a world that wouldn't stop looking at him. So why has she decided to talk about it now? Riley says that for years, the upstairs remained silent out of necessity. Her mother, Lisa Marie, had a protective relationship with that part of the house. It was too painful, too sacred, too unresolved. But after Lisa Marie's passing, Riley found herself in a new role, both as owner of Graceland and as the voice of a family legacy. She felt it was time to share the parts of a story that had never been told, not for spectacle, but for understanding, not to exploit, but to connect. Still, Riley is clear. The upstairs will remain closed to the public. These stories, these revelations, are meant to give fans a deeper emotional connection to Elvis, not physical access to the rooms. Some spaces are meant to stay personal, she said, but that doesn't mean they have to stay secret. Is Elvis still alive? The most enduring theory in pop culture. Could Elvis Presley have faked his own death and escaped through a tunnel buried beneath Graceland? It sounds like something out of a thriller novel, but to this day, thousands of fans believe it's not just possible, they believe it happened. What fuels this theory isn't just blind devotion or tabloid nonsense. It's the unusual details surrounding his final days, his need for extreme privacy, and the layout of Graceland itself, which some say includes a hidden underground passage built specifically for him to vanish when he needed to. The tunnel rumor has circulated for decades. According to some former Graceland employees and unverified visitor accounts, there's said to be a hidden passage leading from the main house to the rear of the property, or even beyond it. One popular theory claims it stretches beneath the meditation garden and leads to an unmarked exit in a wooded area behind the estate. The purpose, depending on who you ask, it was either a privacy safeguard so Elvis could avoid paparazzi, or an emergency escape route, just in case he ever decided to disappear for good. Those who support this theory point to Elvis's growing paranoia in the 1970s. He had microphones swept for bugs. He stopped performing regularly. He started pulling away from public appearances, and even inside Graceland, he rarely left the second floor. It wasn't just reclusive behavior, it was total withdrawal. For believers, this withdrawal was the prelude to a plan. So what about the tunnel itself? Is there any proof it exists? Official Graceland blueprints that are available to the public make no mention of such a tunnel. But these documents are incomplete by design. Graceland's second floor isn't shown either, and we know that area exists. Some former staffers have denied the tunnel outright. Others have said cryptically, there are things not even employees are shown. The Presley family has never acknowledged a tunnel in any interview, memoir, or authorized documentary. But that hasn't stopped fans from trying to prove it. In 1987, a freelance journalist reportedly snuck onto the property and claimed he found a partially concealed concrete entryway near the rear carport. His claims were never verified, and no photographic evidence was ever published. But once that rumor spread, it stuck. Then came the sightings. The first major Elvis is alive moment came in 1978, just 1 year after his death. A man resembling Presley was reportedly seen boarding a plane at Memphis International Airport under the name John Burroughs. That's not a random alias. John Burroughs was the same fake name Elvis had used repeatedly when checking into hotels on tour. The sighting made local news, but was brushed off as coincidence. Still, it triggered a wave of similar stories. In 1984, a tourist visiting Graceland took a photo of a groundskeeper relaxing behind the house. That image went viral, or as viral as a photo could go in the 80s. Fans insisted the man was Elvis. He wore sunglasses, had Presley's facial features, and appeared heavier, in line with what Elvis would have looked like had he aged naturally. The image was blown up, analyzed, and scrutinized. But to this day, Graceland staff have never revealed who the man actually was. More sightings followed: Elvis in Michigan, Elvis at a Burger King in Texas, Elvis spotted watching an Elvis impersonator show in Nevada. One of the strangest reports came in 1994, when a man matching his description reportedly walked into a DMV in California. The clerk said he was polite, quiet, and paid in cash. When asked for a name, he said, "That's not important." The security footage, if it ever existed, was never released. Another layer of the theory rests on the official documentation of Elvis's death. Some fans point to inconsistencies in the death certificate, mainly the spelling of his middle name. Elvis's legal middle name was Aaron, but the gravestone and paperwork read Aaron. For believers, this was no typo. It was a deliberate signal, a sign that the man buried there wasn't actually him. But why would Elvis fake his death? The most common theory is burnout. By the late 1970s, Elvis was in chronic pain, struggling with addiction, and sick of fame. He believed he couldn't escape the public eye unless he disappeared entirely. Faking his death would have been the only way to live in peace. Supporters argue that Elvis had the money, the connections, and the isolated property to pull it off, especially if he had a private tunnel leading out of his estate. Of course, there's no credible forensic evidence that he lived beyond 1977. No DNA match, no fingerprints, no verified communications. His autopsy was performed, his body was viewed by family, and his funeral was public. The sightings, while fascinating, are ultimately based on blurry photos and unverified anecdotes. Many of the supposed witnesses have walked back their stories over the years. Still, what keeps the theory alive is how little of Elvis's final days were seen. He hadn't been photographed publicly in months. He wasn't touring, and most notably, he was living almost entirely in the upstairs portion of Graceland, which remains sealed to this day. That silence has created a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, so people fill it with stories, with guesses, with the idea that the king of rock and roll might have decided to leave the stage one final time, on his own terms. Riley Keough doesn't need to address every rumor. She understands that part of Elvis's enduring power is the mystery. She said repeatedly that her role is not to explain him, but to protect what mattered to him, whether that means guarding his emotional legacy or maintaining the sealed rooms of Graceland. She believes some things are meant to remain unanswered. Maybe there is no tunnel. Maybe there never was. Maybe the sightings were all mistaken identities, and the misspelled name on the grave was just a well-intentioned correction. They included tracks like Way Down, Moody Blue, and covers of old gospel favorites. RCA released some of this material after his death, but according to audio engineers and session players, not all of it. Several songs were either left incomplete or shelved entirely due to Elvis's declining health. Bootleggers have made this story messier. Over the years, dozens of so-called lost Elvis tracks have appeared on underground cassette and vinyl releases. Some contain clear outtakes or alternate versions of known songs. Others feature vocals that sound like Elvis, but might actually be impersonators or artificially enhanced studio manipulations. One infamous bootleg, circulated in the 1990s, claimed to include a haunting ballad called This Is Goodbye, supposedly recorded just weeks before Elvis's death. The track was later debunked when the voice was matched to a known impersonator, but that hasn't stopped other tapes from emerging. What keeps the theory alive isn't just bootlegs, it's silence. Unlike most legacy musicians, whose vaults have been opened and reissued over the years, Elvis's personal archive remains surprisingly guarded. RCA and Sony have released multiple box sets of alternate takes and unreleased material, but these are curated projects. Controlled. Selective. There's a difference between what's been cleared for commercial release and what might still exist in Graceland's private storage. The sealed rooms upstairs are a constant source of speculation. Riley Keough, who inherited the estate after Lisa Marie Presley's death in 2023, has confirmed that these rooms remain untouched. She's described them as frozen in time, and while she hasn't specifically mentioned music recordings, she has alluded to personal artifacts that have never been cataloged or shown publicly. Archivists working with Graceland have said the same, that the full contents of certain storage areas, especially in Elvis's bedroom and study, haven't been digitally archived yet. That includes documents, books, tapes, and unreleased materials. One former estate employee anonymously claimed in a fan forum that a reel-to-reel tape player was found in Elvis's upstairs study, along with a small stack of unlabeled tapes. There's no official confirmation of this, but the story gained traction because it lines up with known facts. Elvis often recorded himself singing casually at home, sometimes to review his voice, other times to share rough drafts with close collaborators. These tapes weren't always meant for release. They were personal and perhaps deeply private. Even Elvis's former producer, Felton Jarvis, once said that Presley recorded far more than RCA ever released. He spoke of late-night tapes and rough piano sessions that were kept off the label's radar because Elvis didn't want anyone hearing them yet or ever. Whether those recordings survived and whether they still sit boxed in a cabinet somewhere upstairs is the question no one seems able to answer definitively.